So Mel, do you want to respond?
Yes. Oh, where to begin? Anyway, one of the things I love about Courtney is that she wasn't part of the SoloSIRENs, and yet she, in her words, she captured the spirit of the SoloSIRENs. And we try to define what SoloSIRENs is, and most of the time, like, it's not just the name of a group; it's a tangible thing, and that tangible thing, we all have different words for describing it, but it's a space where all of us, the members of the SoloSIRENs and the people that come to be with us at every project that we've ever done, are welcomed, and to be themselves, to come up and be present. And sometimes, we will call each other on things. We will say when someone is probably hiding or holding back or not being present to themselves, because it's all about you anyway. We would say, you shouldn't be apologizing too much. There's no reason for you to apologize for being late or whatever. Things happen, life happens. And I am a member of the SoloSIRENs because it's a space where I can be as authentic as I can be, because I love authenticity. I find, those people that say, I'm one person in this place and another person in another place, very difficult to deal with. I'm always me. And if I can't be me, if I have to be smaller or more, I don't know, or less, I don't know, I can't deal with it. And so with Courtney's paper and how she describes the whole academic stuff and all those, whatever words, I still got the essence of the fact that she saw us being women who would go on Zoom and we would talk about things. And I think what helped us to be more effective on Zoom was that majority of us already knew each other. We already trusted each other. We already loved each other. And so those people that came to join us were coming to a space that was already established. And that space is established because the intention of Jenny, our director, was very clear. And I would say Jenny is the most patient, most understanding human being I know. And I'll say why. On Zoom, as you know, things go crazy on Zoom. And some people did not want to shut up. Some people would go off topic. And Jenny I would look at her and look at her face and think, she's not even stressed about this. Because I would get to a point where I say, just shut up now, please. We've had enough. But she never did that. And because she never did that, I also learned to be more patient with other people. Because I see that just because they want to say something that I consider off topic does not mean it's wrong. It just means it has to come out. And it has to come out at this point. And it will be okay. We're not doing brain surgery. Nobody's going to die. So it's okay. I can take a breath and relax and let it be. And to me, that's my reaction, that it's a paper that anyone can pick up. If you let go of all these other academic whatevers, you can still get the essence of what she was talking about, the essence of being female, being a woman, telling each other stories, that one person will start, I don't know where it ends, somebody picks it up, and then it comes back to me because now I've remembered what I really wanted to say, and then it goes to someone else, but it ends up being, we don't want Kesa to die of a broken heart, because what kind of woman would do that? Because we've all been in love, we've all lost, but we're still here, and we're still strong, and we still thrive, and we still love, and we still do the best that we can in this world. And if we support each other, it's even greater. And it's that support that is in SoloSIRENs that Courtney quote that is very feminine and very good for us, for humanity, that you can get from the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Pamela, can I get your reaction, please?
Yes.
You too have a comedy mic.
Hopefully this is working.
It's not on.
Now it's working.
No, you have to release. There you go.
Now it's working.
Yay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. So I'm a dramaturg who looks, I suppose, at the construction of meaning in plays and performances, both the processes of how that meaning is created and then how it's communicated to the audience. So I suppose I'm bringing that lens to bear on her paper, and I'm going to make, and having listened, especially this morning, looked at the website, looked at the stories, looked at the performance videos, and listened to everyone talk and perform this morning the evocative and richness of the performance. I'm going to attempt to sort of slightly break down some of those academic terms in relation to the performance, and I do mean attempt. So one of the interesting things I think about myth is the use of myth and her use of the word hegemonic as well, because myth quite often is used to enhance hegemonic thought within society. And what does that mean? It means about like what's agreed and central to mainstream ideas of politics and how a society is run. So obviously, historically in Ireland, patriarchal thought. And so it's really interesting, this particular use of myth. Somebody mentioned earlier on that in this myth, when it's known, she becomes Christian at the end and she becomes a saint. And that's the idea of the hegemony in that notion of that myth, where her wildness, her power is Christianized and controlled. But actually now this group coming back to this myth is taking ownership of it, and taking ownership of it in a really particular way that pushes far beyond that hegemony and becomes very much, I think, that feminist aesthetic, you know. And then I suppose just digging a little bit maybe into ethnography as an idea, and particularly feminist ethnography. Again, ethnography was something that was like a form of research that was about facts, objects, discovery in that way in the world. And so bringing feminist sensibilities to bear into the idea of ethnography and observation of societies, of groups in societies, of communities, and how they interact, requires you to look differently, to take feminist principles, if you like, into those observations and into those recordings. And so thinking again about the show and the process of how it's made, you're looking into that myth and you're using what you choose to pull out of that, the feminist story of that myth, to then access a wider performance mode within the group, which hopefully brings us a little bit onto the idea of feminist performances as well. Because it's in terms of those performance, it's like the text, which is the beautiful text that you all have created. But the other thing that really strongly struck me in the performance was the body and the choreography of those bodies and the embodied knowledge that was communicating to people in the performance. Because one of the things you talk about in feminist ethnography is the idea that there's many types of knowledge. And one of the knowledges, if you like, that women carry with them are those that we carry in the body and aren't necessarily verbalized or intellectual. And I was particularly struck by much of the choreography, certainly of the traveling on the ship, but even more particularly somebody spoke about when it came to Ireland and to landfall and the labor that was in that performance. And it was very, very powerful. And I have to say, I only watched it on video. I wasn't even present in the room, to see that narrative was brought through the narrative of the labour of the body and the embodied knowledge of women, which is part of a feminist aesthetic, and is, again, thinking of that in terms of the feminist ethnography. It's another further language within the stories. And an interesting term she used in her paper was crosstalk. In terms of when you're working, and I've done a little bit of collecting of oral histories, and when you're working in that way and people are giving their voice to you, women are great communicators, as we've seen this morning. And so you get this sense of people talking across each other. And as she said in her paper, it's quite hard to pull that truth out. And a big challenge actually for feminist ethnography is not just the crosstalk, it's how our bodies behave as we speak as well. And quite often, when you write this down, when you collect this knowledge, you have to write in how people spoke and what they spoke. There has to be a descriptive element. And so you come back to that idea again of the embodied knowledge, which then becomes part of your performance ethnography, because of course we have that visual. And I don't know if this is helpful or not, but to me, it was evocative of speaking into the wider performance culture in Ireland as well. Very strong echoes for me of Amanda Coogan's work, if anyone knows her work, particularly her piece Yellow, which embodies this repetition of labour, the things which also reflects the things that are kind of unspoken among women. And I think I'm probably going on a bit long, so I'll just make one final point. Which the other wonderful thing is about hegemony tends to have one clear narrative goal. And to truly embrace the idea of feminist aesthetics, you really embrace that idea of multiplicity. And so there being 100 stories is brilliant, because it then allows so many different versions of the narrative to come through. And my final point, Sarah, is that for the audience experience in terms of going to see this show, and when you walk through that space, obviously the open outdoor space and coming indoors, but when you make those kind of choices as to where to stop and listen, to choose to be immersed in that beautiful soundscape that was described to us earlier on, or to pull out of that and go to a speaker, to individual narrative stories. And that makes the audience themselves an ethnographer in choosing where they direct their own attention and choosing the pieces they put together to create the feminist narrative of César, which I'm slightly mispronouncing, sorry.
No, will do. Thank you very much. And I think we were talking earlier on about how that kind of multi-layered narrative in that bigger space spoke to a lot of care, which again would be part of that whole feminist dialogue is that care for putting yourself in the position of the audience, and then knowing that they can then make choices as to, right, that banner I can't deal with today. And we were saying, especially post-COVID, at the time of the performance, that our skins were very, very thin, and that there was a huge amount of care given to the audience by the collective in that holding of space, which they clearly did in their process, but also extended to their audience.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think so. But holding a space is one of those terms I think we use a lot. Do you know what I mean? And it's a lot harder than it sounds.
It is.
In a way, you know. It seems like an easy thing to do, but within that, I think both within process, but also in your offering to the audience, is a trust, both for the performers, but then also for the audience, and also allowing there to be conflicting visions, and allowing both the similarities and those oppositional ideas to come to the fore, you know.